All right. Welcome, YouTube land. Today we have a special guest, Isabelle Guarino. Did I say it right, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Cool. Um, we almost named our daughter Isabella, but
Oh.
instead we named her Isla Bella.
Oh, that's cute.
Beautiful island.
I
So
like that.
fantastic. So I'm so like I was I think I said the word excited like way too many times when I was on Instagram yesterday. I was like, I don't know what other word to say. One, because I know hopefully this doesn't offend, but you're a boss bitch, you know what I'm saying? Like, A. Uh and I love it. I love just how you come off. I love that you have so much power and so much confidence. Other than like you're absolutely gorgeous.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
I love that you are bringing to the table something that is so purposeful and meaningful to our communities.
Yeah.
Like as I was mentioning, I was a caregiver for 8 years, and to get like go to most any residential assisted living, and you see caregivers who love on their patients, like their clients. My mom's a caregiver too. She's still a caregiver. And so for me, this was great. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. And I'm glad that you have experience in, were you working in a larger like facility or a smaller home?
Um, Depending. So I was in. So when I first started being a caregiver, I was getting into college, and
Mhm.
so I needed like a third job
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
keep up with being able to pay my rent.
Yeah.
And my mom, who was already a caregiver, she's like, "Oh, hey, come be with this." So I was with an agency who would
Okay.
deploy us into different households, and sometimes we were at a big facility, but usually it was like a private hire.
Yeah.
So we would be in a big facility, or we would be in somebody's private home. And so
Yeah.
I got to see it all, like see all the different types of caregiving units there's been, just to see like how it differs. So yeah, for
It's
sure.
amazing because it does differ, but it's so cool that you have that experience. And now that it's coming full circle and you're getting back into it, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the portion the audience did not hear is I am buying right now in the middle of buying a group home property, and because it's one story, it just makes sense to become a residential assisted living in an area where there's quite a few of them, but like some of our investor friends say, you got to go and run where there's traffic, you
Yeah.
know, to get hit. So like, so I found a tenant who wants to move in. We just got to get the loan process done. So for
That's
sure.
awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. What so maybe if you could tell us a little bit about your story, how you came around to being the RAL expert, and as it's my understanding, you also have an academy out here in Arizona, and a huge part of our audience is in Arizona. So I'd love to kind of funnel them to you if it makes sense for them.
Amazing. Yeah. So I'm the COO of Residential Assisted Living Academy. We teach and train real estate investors and entrepreneurs how to start, own, and operate their own care homes. Not work in them necessarily, right? Like your first experience, but more what you're doing now, which is owning the real estate and or operating the business. But I own and operate three of my own in the Scottsdale and Phoenix area. We invest in about 50 across the country. Absolutely love what I do because it's a great way to cash flow, but also it's a great way to help serve the community. And there are so many seniors in need, and Arizona is full of them, right? But they're everywhere, and there's so much opportunity. And so I really, really love being able to share with people like a new opportunity that maybe they didn't think of until it happened to their own family. And then they're like, oh my gosh, this is so expensive. How am I going to deal with this with multiple parents who they may need to pay for? Or, they're just looking for a totally different strategy than what they've been doing with their single family buy and holds, fix and flips, or rentals, even Airbnbs these days. I mean, man, Scottsdale coming down hard on some rules and regulations. So it could be a good alternative to something you already have, or it could be something that your family needs, or best of both worlds, a little bit of both.
That's fantastic. Now, since you have an academy here in Arizona, but you guys are accessible for anybody doing this across the country, right?
Yeah, we have students in all 50 states.
Fantastic. So somebody like me who maybe finds a property, has good bones, has a good setup for this need.
Yeah.
Is it possible to team up with you, or be able to cater to some of the people that you help to say, hey, I have this property available. Is this something that they would look at?
Yeah, typically I get sent about 100 deals a day.
Wow.
That are like a whole lot of, because we're national. So they're not all in Arizona, right? They're coming from everywhere, saying either this is an existing care home that they're looking to sell. This is a single family that I think could be a good fit for one of your students. Or, hey, I just renovated and retrofit this. Does one of your students want to take a look at it? So our team goes through, kind of vets those deals, because if you haven't, our training is made for the landlords. It's made for the owners. It's not made for the administrators or the caregivers. So if you haven't been through the training, you may not exactly know what we're looking for and what our students would deem a good deal. So when that gets sent to us, we'll vet the deal. We'll kind of see if it's any good. If it is good, we get it out to our private Facebook group, because, as you probably know, like, none of this should be listed publicly, basically. If it's listed publicly, it's probably a terrible deal. So almost all of it is done behind the scenes in private, off market. And so because of that, it is a very sensitive thing. We don't want, for example, if the home is filled with seniors and then someone's listing it on Biz Buy Sell or LoopNet or wherever, hey, we're selling this care home, and daughter Judy, who's, senior loved ones in the home, she's a realtor, or she's, business savvy herself. If she sees that, she's going to be like, oh my God, I need my mom or dad to move out. And now there goes your vacancies. Now you're not selling anything but just a piece of real estate, right? You're not selling the business anymore. So almost everything's done off market. So we get sent a lot. If it's a good deal, we'll get it out to our students, and they'll reach out to you guys directly. We don't take any piece of the pie. We're not involved in that sense at all. It's just kind of, we're that middleman to say, hey, this is a deal that came up. Take a look at it. Feel free to do your own due diligence.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I actually had a scenario like that a couple of Sundays ago now. We had a gal who was selling her property over in Cave Creek.
Yeah.
And maybe there's still an opportunity. Oh, you got your Stanley. I got my Stanley. All right. There's a gal who, she's an owner operator though. And that exact thing happened to her. She listed technically her real estate on MLS.
Yeah.
And she lost half of her clients because they all feared. And because it speaks to her caregiving too, where they love her. They didn't want like a stranger coming in.
Yeah.
And so she didn't get to control that transition. So it was unfortunate. We were trying to buy her property creatively. So be able to give her the number she was looking for, but make the numbers work for us, because it was she wanted 1.2 million for it. It's a really nice house, luxury.
Yeah.
But the numbers were not holding up for performance, and partly due that she's kept it mostly half full. So 5 patients at most.
Yeah.
And so the numbers weren't, it's a business. Right. So the numbers weren't there to support such a high price point.
Right. The real estate's one side of it, and that is whatever that fee is. But the business side of it is usually 2 to 3 times the EBITDA. And if it's not making money, it's not cash flowing, or you're not full, you don't have anything to sell. You're just selling the real estate at that point, because you're right that when the word gets out that they're selling, the families and the seniors, they're connected to that owner and that team. And if the team's going to change, they may not want to be there. So sometimes they get fearful and just jump automatically. So it really needs to be kept under the radar. They should not know that anything is changing until the day the new owner walks in and says, "Hey guys, I'm the new owner," right?
Yeah.
Like no one should hear a peep. So it's a lot of off-market deals for sure.
Yeah. And in your experience too, because obviously I have a flavor of creative finance. I'm in a group that's their focus, like subject to existing loans. One area that I've not explored is like SBA loans. And I am starting to look a little bit more into what business buying looks like.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot, or at least what you teach, is to leverage SBA loans for these businesses?
We do. SBA is very friendly with RAL. And in our training, we do kind of connect you with a lot of resources that can help you with that financing piece of it, because you shouldn't be using your own capital for it. So no matter what route you go, right, it just shouldn't be your own pocket. But SBA is very, very friendly with this. And we've got a couple companies that our students love to work with. And so we kind of just make that transition, that handoff. But it's not the only way. You can definitely do bank loans in more rural areas. You can even do USDA loans. You can do private money, hard money. I mean, the list goes on and on. A lot of our students do syndications because there's so many people who are getting 0% on their money right now. And if you could offer them an opportunity to get 5, 10, 15%, like they would jump at it. And so this is a beautiful way to kind of involve a lot of people in an industry that does need, some attention towards it. So yeah, SBA is great, but there's so many creative ways.
Yeah. And I think you had a fantastic statistic that you shared on another podcast I watched, and maybe you can share it because I don't want to get the numbers wrong. Again, on the business side, we keep hearing the senior tsunami's coming, the baby boomers are getting older. And so many of them are closing down their businesses. I want to hear or heard a statistic of like 10,000 a day or 10,000 maybe a month. I don't know if I'm saying that number correctly, but it's because their kids, the people that they would have left it with, maybe don't have a love for their businesses that they have set up. And so many of them are retiring, though. They're retiring and closing down their businesses. And so where will they retire to? Assisted living, And so what is that statistic that you shared about how many are like, what that demand looks like for this need?
Yeah, I don't know about baby boomers closing down their businesses, but I do know that there's 10,000 seniors every single day turning 65, 4,000 seniors every day turning 85. 90% want to stay in their own home, right? But 70% of us are going to need care for an average of 3.5 years. So the silver tsunami is coming and we can't stop it. Currently, we're like 1.3 million beds short right now for assisted living. And the NIC is projecting that we're only building 50,000 beds per year. So this is a huge opportunity with the baby boomer generation coming, right? Because the silent generation is who lives in assisted living, 44 million of them, but the baby boomers, 76 million of them, they're going to need care in the next 10, 20 years. And so this is our time to ramp up, to build up, to get that reputation, kind of plant your roots, become known in the assisted living space so that when this huge flood of seniors comes, you already have the footprint down. You don't want to be getting it. It's like Airbnb. Nobody wants to get into it now. Everyone to get into it 10, 15 years ago, right? And you've already missed the wave. And so this wave will be a lot longer than Airbnb because of the baby boomer and the mass of their generation. It's going to be more like a 20 to 30 year wave, but it's literally starting right now. And so it's like, there's no time better than right now to start getting involved in this, no matter how you want to play, but somehow, some way get involved.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I see that Caroline. Oh, there she is. She was waiting for that pause. That's my girl. You're on mute, by the way. You almost got it.
I couldn't get it too. It would have been too easy if everything went perfectly. I wanted to wait. I didn't want to jump in and interrupt while you were on the flow there. So, but I was watching on Instagram Live on your Instagram Live before everything happened. So I'm caught up. But this is fascinating. We just went out to dinner the other night. Ingryd, myself, and a few other friends. LT, one of our best friends. We were just kind of talking about all of the assisted living and how they're to make more affordable housing. So I'm fascinated by this. But But I see there are some questions in the side chat already. Are you ready to take some questions, Isabel?
Yeah, especially
yeah.
Kent.
I know.
Great.
Love Kent, so I'll read it for you. So Kent, he asks, are there any government subsidies or incentives that residents can qualify for to help subsidize some of the costs associated to make more affordable living in your assisted living homes?
Yes, Ken. So I would say this. There is government funding, right? Medicare, Medicaid, all of that good stuff. It pays out at about $1,800 a month. So if that's all the senior is relying on, it's not going to be enough to afford to live in your luxury RAL home. The average rates in America today are $4,500 a month. So $1,800 is getting you rice, beans, and hot dogs, and where that care is like one person taking care of 15 people, right? And so it's sad. So what I highly suggest our students do, and what some of our students like Dean and Julie out in Georgia, they opened what we call a level 5 home. So their home's cash flowing about $35,000 a month. And it's for higher end, seniors who need care and assistance. With that cash flow.
Wait, how many bedrooms is that? Just so we know.
They have 12 seniors in that home.
12 seniors in that home. Is it one senior per room, or you have 2 seniors in a room?
Private bedrooms, private bathrooms. People don't want to share.
And how much is it making a month, cash flow?
35,000 net profit to the owners.
Okay, wow. Okay, continue.
So that home, the profits used on that home, they use that to support a home that is with government funding. And then they have a third home that they use that cash flow to live and enjoy their life and whatever. So if your heart, Kent, is for seniors who need care and assistance and cannot afford it, you have to make sure the 3 legs of the stool work: your residents, your seniors, and your business. If your business doesn't work, this isn't going to work. So you've got to figure out a way. And one of the ways could be opening a high end and using those profits to support. I thought that was such a beautiful thing that they did, because there are so many seniors who need help and aren't going to be able to afford this. Most of the time, it's their adult children who are footing the bill, or they're selling their home and paying, using that capital, their cash, their savings, their investments, their IRAs. But if you don't have any of that and your kids don't like you, you're screwed. You got to figure something out. So there is a massive need. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm wondering too, if there's like a nonprofit model to set it up so that if your luxury is paying that more subsidized RAL, that there is some sort of taxable incentive to doing that.
I'm sure that there is. We have a nonprofit advisor who kind of comes in. Some of our students do set up their homes as nonprofit, but the NFL was nonprofit for a long time. It doesn't mean we're not making profit, right? So there's ways to go about it for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay.
We have Veronica as a question. There are assisted livings here, or living single family homes in her hometown, and they're owned by the same lady. How could she approach her to find out if she's interested in selling?
Great question. So you never want to directly ask, because you don't know who you're talking to on the phone, right? Unless if it's a caregiver, and 80% of this industry is run by immigrants. So maybe English might not be their first language. And if you call and say, hey, just wondering if you're selling, they may hear, oh my God, we're selling. And now they go look for another job, and now they're mad at their boss. And
good point.
Never talk to anyone on the phone. Find out, is it the owner, right? Not necessarily caregiver, not necessarily the licensed administrator, owner. When you finally get her, I would ask in a roundabout way, meaning, hey, I'm getting into this industry and I'm looking to know, do you know anyone who is selling their home? I know you're pretty predominant in this industry and I know you have connections. Do you know of anyone who's looking to sell? If they know someone, they'll share it. And if it's them, that's a really easy way to say that. If you say, are you looking to sell? It might just be a little too aggressive. And if they're not, that's fine. But you're planting the seed that maybe if she is, she knows who to call. But I would approach it, I'm getting into this industry. Not I'm looking to get in, not I might, I'm getting in. Do you know anyone else who might be selling? It's a very good way to kind of get that information.
That's fantastic.
That's a good point. And then for everybody as well, before we get to the next question here, just to keep in mind, don't just, and that goes for not even just assisted living houses in general. It might help you, because you might even seem one of the things I've just gone through some sales training, and every Wednesday morning I go through and I train people on what I've done. And you don't want to answer questions like factually. So if somebody says, hey, are you looking to sell? Don't just say, yes, I am. Like you should, why are they asking that question? You might want to dig a little bit deeper, because this woman where you said, Veronica, she's like the major one, that's the only one owning all these properties here. She might take that as a threat that you're looking to take over her territory. So you might even just be, hey, I'm a small time person that's doing some assisted living. You look like you know what you're doing. I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job with what I already have running. Do you know anybody else who's looking to sell, or how can I add value to you? What are you struggling with? So if you leave with value, a lot of people want to work with you. I know you probably get questions all the time, Isabelle. I know Ingryd and myself get messages from people like, can you underwrite this for us? Can you talk to this person for us? So yeah, but you got to remember, guys, everybody's always listening to the same radio station as WIIFM. What's in it for me? So when you're reaching out to them, just remember they're thinking, what's in it for me? So before you reach out to anybody, keep that in mind. All right, we'll get to the next question. I wanted to add that in there while we are there. So,
I love it.
Yeah, Daniel said, do you have any resources on how to convert a house into an assisted living, like the type of rehab it'll need to make it safe for seniors, hiring nurses, etc.? Does your course cover that?
Yes, that's what it's all about. How to find the homes, fund the homes, fill the homes. We go through the 4 ways to get started. So buying land, building custom from the ground up, buying a single family home, converting, leasing a home for this, or buying an existing, buying the real estate and buying the property. We go through hiring, right? And what you're going to want to look for and what you need in your staffing, expenses, raising capital. I mean, really, truly, it's all covered. So yes, we have 3-day trainings in Phoenix, and we also have an online home study course if you're not in Phoenix and don't want to come out and enjoy golf, spa, and resorts.
When is your next 3-day training?
The next one is October, I think 12 through 15. So it's coming right up.
Ooh, okay.
And we have about 8 training dates per year.
Oh.
So we've got an October one. There we go. And then a December one. And then we have 8 scheduled for 2024.
That's really cool. Yeah.
That's really neat. And what's the best way to get a hold of you or to find out about that? RAL101.com is a great place to start. There's free books, free webinars. You can schedule a call with me and the team. You can get registered for a course. RAL101.com. All right, perfect. Well, then I can pull that up so everybody can see it, since I've just restarted my entire computer. So now you get to see her again in digital.
There you go.
I'll put it in the side chat so everybody has it as well. All right, let's get to the next question for you. I'll leave that up for a moment just so everybody can see that. We already answered that one. So Andriana said, does this, let me stop sharing so we can see your face again. Does this work for retired living and not just assisted living?
Oh, so I think you're referring to like independent living or the Golden Girls model. And it's similar but different, right? Because the big thing I haven't been able to really crack the code on from the investor perspective is why most of these seniors own their home free and clear. So why would they want to move out to live with strangers in a shared space when they already have their home and they don't want to leave and they're not paying mortgage, and you're now going to make them pay more than it probably their mortgage even was? So I haven't really cracked the code on this, other than it being like 4 girlfriends and we're like, oh, let's all do this together, and we're choosing to do it, right? But I don't know. So I think it's a super cute idea, like Golden Girls independent living, but I don't know how to market it to make it make sense for the seniors, because like I said, 90% of seniors when surveyed do not want to leave their own home. They're not moving into assisted living for funsies. They're moving in because the doctor said, you cannot go home alone. You are not safe to live alone. You have to have 24/7 care. And so Golden Girls is more of a fun model. Assisted living, not so sexy. It's more of a forced model, unfortunately. So
Bronze Girls, yeah.
Yes.
I'm actually looking at a property right now in Florida. It's a 55 plus community. And I would say this is why people make 55 plus communities. That is in general, like the model. And man, they were telling me all kinds of stuff that happens it's called the Villages.
Oh yeah. The Villages is a huge.
It's a swinging good time. And I was like,
yeah.
okay.
Once you look into it, you just realize they're at the end of their rope. They don't care what happens.
Yeah.
They're having the time of their life.
I've heard some crazy statistics about that, like the STD rate.
Yeah. Well, what do they get? So talking about that, I was actually today, I've been talked to a few attorneys, Ingryd. I've had to do a lot of stuff for some properties, and I'm actually helping. Well, I'm going to be helping a gentleman. I've been helping him for a few months, who's in pre-foreclosure, who's in Northern Phoenix. He works as a FedEx package guy at the airport. So, but he's 73. He's 73, doing really well. He was actually on the 1972 Olympics team. He told me, in case you guys are wondering, he went to Russia then. And he sold his Levi's in 1972, 2 pairs of Levi's, sold them for $500 a piece because they don't sell Levi's in Russia. Got to know the guy, but he was, he's had cancer, and big house, 4-bedroom, 2-bath house right on the Scottsdale, Phoenix border up north. And he's like, Caroline, I don't know maybe you two would know what this commercial is because I don't watch TV here, but there's some window commercial where this lady's like, I'm getting my windows and I'm going to die here. Because he kept telling me that. He's like, I don't want to leave this house. I'll do anything but leave this house. And I was like, dude, like he didn't care. Didn't care if it ruined his credit to have anything. So he wants to go through the bankruptcy, or at least he did until I spoke with him earlier. Now his buddy, whose wife had to go into assisted living, is selling their house. I tried to get in on that one, but he didn't want to work with me, but selling that house, and he's going to pay off the second mortgage from selling his house to help out my John Doe seller. So yeah, guys, knowing who you're talking to is really important, because he's like, I don't care. I'll do a Chapter 12 bankruptcy. I don't care if I have that I'm dying in 5 years anyway. So that was a very morbid conversation I had with him. I'm like, all right. So I'm going to go see him next week in the morning when he gets his check and help him talk to the bank to get that mortgage paid off. But yeah, understanding who you're talking to is really important. I've had a few other phone calls today where people are like, I'm motivated, but I'm not. Assisted living is the same situation. So just another little fun fact. All right, let's get to the next question for you, Isabelle. How are you able to help these assisted living homes get staffed?
Yes. So when it comes to staffing, like I mentioned early, right, 80% of this industry is run by immigrants. So you could be looking on all sorts of places, right? Like Indeed, Craigslist, and any job hiring websites, Facebook, whatever. You can also be looking at other care homes in your area, because it's usually done like shift work, right? They're working an 8, 10, or 12-hour shift, kind of like a nurse. So they might be working 3 on, 4 off. Well, they're not off on those other 3 or 4. If you don't have another home, they're working in Joe Schmo home down the road, right? So we highly encourage that you don't just get one of these, you get 3 within 20 minutes of each other, so you can share your staff. They can work full-time for you here, full-time for you here. You're not paying overtime, and they're in the same work culture and environment. But staffing, you can get them through communicating with other care home owners and big box owners in the area. Once they come into your home and they're like, oh my God, at a big box, it's 20-1. And at this home, it's 4-1. And I'm getting paid the same. I want to come over here and hang out at the mansion where my work is cut in a fifth, right? And so now all of a sudden they're like, can I pick up more shifts? Can I pick up more shifts? And you start converting people really easily. But it's really a really network-based industry. A lot of people know each other. And so asking around, talking to people. I like to do targeted ads in local newspapers. So in our local Romanian and Filipino newspaper, I'll do a targeted ad written in English, and we attract people that way. There's a ton of free Facebook groups, caregiver training schools, even community colleges have courses these days on caregiving. You can become a preferred hiring source when they graduate. There's so many different ways that you can go about hiring.
So I know a little bit about caregiving. So do you have one, maybe nurse practitioner or somebody who oversees all the houses? What does that look? You just have to have one medical person on staff, and the rest can just be CN. I don't even know what the lowest level of a nurse is. CNA.
Certified nursing assistant.
There you go.
Every state varies on what the caregiver requirement looks like. Arizona's pretty high, actually. Texas is you have to be 18 and have a GED. That's it.
Texas.
Right. It's kind of scary. I tell our Texas students, you need to look at a state with higher requirements like in Arizona and make your home go off of these rules. I don't care what Texas says. You need to be to a higher standard.
Yourself, yeah.
But the caregivers, they do direct care to the residents. They deal with the families, cooking, cleaning, laundry, and they're with the seniors 24/7. That licensed administrator, which again varies in every state, that might be a registered nurse, but typically it's not. Typically it is something less than that, but they are medically trained to some degree, again, depending state by state.
Yep.
But they kind of, in the real estate world, they're like your property manager. So they run hiring, firing, payroll. They would do the tours. They would help, intake the families and the residents. They would deal with, okay, somebody needs to go to the doctor's office, or the handyman needs to come over, the activities calendar, the menu. They do it all so that you just have to own the real estate, own the business. And that's who I communicate with at my home. So I have weekly meetings with her. She can call me whenever, but official weekly meetings. And then I go over like every other month to the home just to check on it. But if you set it up right with those systems in place, it's like, if you have an issue, you're calling her, right?
Yeah.
I don't hear about it until later, which is good. That's how I want it to be, right? That's how we set it up. So
when people go through your course, they'll get your systems and processes too?
Exactly. That's what we're showing you how to do, how to set it up so that you can be the most hands-off possible. If you choose to be more involved, like be a caregiver, be a licensed administrator, go ahead, more power to you. But I'm showing you how to work all the way out here, and it's your choice where you want to fall.
I know you can't tell, but I just had big heart emojis come in my eyes. So for all of you, that is like the dreamiest part of working with somebody. Building the systems is such a pain in the butt. And having somebody who's already put the business in the box for you, and you can just copy and paste. And I'm assuming, Isabelle, they can also reach back out to you if there's some confusion and they have your phone number or some kind of community to work with you and stuff.
Yeah, we do have mentorship and coaching programs. So we're teaching you everything you need in those 3 days or in the online course. But if you want to work with me and my team, the team who's training at the live events, they're all past students who went out and got their homes up and running. And now they're back to teach and train. So there's about 10 people up there from all across the country who have experience doing all sorts of different things, raising capital in different ways, doing memory care versus assisted living, building from the ground up versus leasing. I mean, it's all over the place. So you have everybody's expertise when you work with us to that next level.
Oh, again, guys, that is what you want. Nothing worse than like, just go figure it out. And you're like, I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing. So having all of those systems in place, that is so dreamy. Well, thank you for answering that. All right, let's get to the next one then. So Dustin, one of our favorite guys, Dustin Seiler, he's actually a PA. He said, do you have any recommendations on how to find or vet an administrator for an assisted living facility?
Pretty similar to the question before. You're going to find them in all those same ways. But again, networking. Administrators, you really want to find out the other care home owners in the area and then ask them, hey, do you know anybody who's looking for a job or who's unhappy or whatever? It's not full-time for an administrator to oversee one home. It's typically full-time 2 to 4. So our administrator oversees 3 homes, right? And if you have a 3-pack, that makes a lot of sense because they don't need to be at that one home 24/7. The caregivers are there, right? So they may pop over here for a tour, pop over here because the chef needs them to run groceries or something, and pop over here because a caregiver called out and they're filling in. And it's like they kind of do what they need to do, but they're not like stuck in a home 24/7 like the caregiver is.
Mm-hmm. Do you have do you have a model where they're more of like your partner, or are they still your employee?
We have them as independent contractors, the licensed administrators, but you can pay them in a variety of ways. If they're going to be in charge of the tours and locking in the new residents who are coming, you may want to pay them a base fee based on how many beds are full or not full, right? That incentivizes them to fill up the beds with high-paying residents and whatever the case is. You also could have them be involved in profit share or own a percentage of the business. That's awesome. There's so many ways you can kind of structure it. It could be a flat rate per home. It really depends on what you're asking them to do, what you want to do. And then are you going to supplement with a assistant administrator or somebody else who's going to be helping them? Because sometimes your administrator, they can't do everything I just named, right? That's a unicorn. And so maybe they're like amazing at everything, but suck at the tours. And so like every time they do a tour, it's like, oh my God, we just lost that resident, right? Well, then find an assistant administrator who's amazing at that and be like, this is your gig. And every tour you do, I pay you $500. When that client moves in, they're paying you $5,000 a month for an average of 3.5 years. You'll pay $500 and they'll be happy. They'll be like, more tours, please. Right. So there's so many ways you can kind of structure it.
I love that. It's a who, not how model, and
Oh,
just finding who has the right. And by the way, like, I feel like that's your brand, and I love it. And it's something I feel like I'm growing into.
Yeah.
Is like, you don't have to be the best at everything.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up playing sports. I was a utility player. Like, I learned to play every spot, you know, and that doesn't necessarily serve you. It's going to limit you in how big you can get in your company and your businesses. And so kudos to you, because I see you're very consistent about, I think I just saw a reel recently where it's like, you're actually taking that opportunity away from people to really showcase their talents. And that's not any better. So I loved it.
Yeah, it's true. I think as entrepreneurs and business owners, we can all admit there's like a bit of like, but I can do it. Or like a problem arises and you're like, oh, jump on it, right? Like, and it's like, no, maybe you're not the best person to do it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody might be able to do it faster, cheaper, easier than you. And also, what is your time worth? What's your energy worth? You have to start really evaluating that and saying, like, if I can pay somebody $50 an hour to do this, like, what is your personal rate? And you can do that with how much you get paid and divide it down and whatever, right? And then it's like, if it's less, don't do it.
Yeah.
Save yourself the time where you can be doing something more high value, bringing in even more money. And now it's win-win for everybody. Like, I'm not born to be a caregiver. You're amazing that you could do that. It takes so much heart and skill and energy. You have to be so patient. That's not my God-given gift. So that's okay, right? Not everybody is born that way. But I'm not going to sign up for a job like that. I'm going to hire the best people with the best hearts in the world who love those seniors. And even if they're getting paid the same to work at Chick-fil-A, they'd never work at Chick-fil-A because they love seniors. And that's the difference. Their heart is everything. So it's like, train for skill, hire for heart, because you can't replace somebody's genuine intentions and integrity.
No, totally. And there's so much you can learn from seniors. One of my favorite things about taking care of seniors is their stories. Like, if you love listening to stories, like, they're the best to hear from. They've gone through so much experience. At least that was my situation as a college kid, you know, and learning so much from them and just what they saw, and it's pretty cool. So there is a question about HOAs.
I'm gonna ask this, but because I spoke with Sean St. Clair earlier, because I was talking about the house. So there's a house I am right by Ingryd, live right by Ingryd, that I want to buy. And my seller no longer wants to sell to me. So then they got an attorney, all kinds of stuff. But I was thinking about turning it into assisted living. This has kind of been a theme we've had on our podcast lately, and it's something that's near and dear to Ingryd and my heart. And what Sean told me and I'm curious what you're going to say about the house. He said, if you have a single family house and you have, at least here in Phoenix, and you have more than 5 people in the house that are not related, you can get in trouble. He hasn't seen a lot of people enforce that, but he just wanted to warn me because he's a lawyer. The city could say something and you could get in trouble. So have you had any issues where you were maybe converting a single family home and had issues with the HOA or with the city at all, saying you have too many people in here that are not related?
Well, if the home is licensed as an assisted living home, then you won't have that issue. So you have
if it's zoned a single family, but it's licensed as assisted living, it can be okay?
Yeah, they're all zoned residential, right? There's 30,000 in our country, and there's 3,000 in Maricopa County alone.
Oh, 10%. Wow.
Yeah. So we are the dominating market, right? So they exist on every corner. You could drive down a road in Scottsdale and literally be like, that's one, that's one, that's one, that's one. It's sick how many there are. Like, it's like, because you'd never know. There's no big sign out front. There's no nothing. So An HOA can tell you certain things, right? They can tell you the home can't look different from the outside and things of that nature. So you do need to read up on the codes and covenants and know what's going on. But because of the Federal Fair Housing Act, which is a federal law that says it's discriminatory against disabled people to say that you can't live in a home, right? An HOA, a city, a county, an angry neighbor, even a state loses. It's a federal law. Also, this is not a business in a neighborhood, right? It is a care home for seniors. It's language. Just change the way you speak about it. It is not a business. It is a care home for seniors. When you get a lawyer who writes them a real nice little letter explaining what they're fighting, it's equivalent to them burning crosses, saying that you can't have a care home in a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Where do you want these seniors to go? Yeah. You want to be responsible for homeless seniors. You want to be responsible for the neglect and mistreatment and lack of care that's happening in the local big box. That's where you want your mom to go. Okay. Like, you hate seniors now. What is your solution to serve the senior community in our area? And I think that when people realize it's not a hospital in a neighborhood, you're not bringing any more traffic than if one 95-year-old moved into that home. Gravity affects us everywhere. If she falls and she's living alone, which she'll probably fall more if she's living alone, the ambulance is going to come, or whoever's going to come, right, to take care of her. If she's living in the same care home in the same neighborhood and she falls, what happens? They come. Okay. So it's the exact same thing. You're literally being discriminatory. And because they're not moving in for funsies, right? They need help with 3 to 5 ADLs, activities of daily living. They are considered disabled by that point. They need help getting up, bathing, showering, eating, standing, walking. This isn't Golden Girls, right? Most of them really need a lot of help. And so that's when they're moving in. And so they are considered disabled, but we're a protected class. We did create the RAL National Association, which protects all 30,000 of these care homes. So if you do run into issues, call them, have the Pinkowski team write you a nice letter that you can submit. But Arizona, more than 5, and every state has some rule. And the reason in Arizona, just so you know this, a little history, is because of ASU. They didn't, it used to actually be more than 5 women. It wasn't people, it was women, because they thought the sorority houses were brothels.
Oh, wow.
Hey, by the way.
Yes, go Sun Devils.
That's right.
So, Tucson, U of A has sorority houses. ASU doesn't. Because of that rule. It's a Maricopa County rule. It doesn't go down to Tucson or Flagstaff. Flagstaff has sorority houses.
That's interesting.
We couldn't, because we're considered a brothel.
I'm a little older, but when I went to ASU, there were sorority houses. They're right near campus. But they did away with them. So I wonder how new that rule is during that time. It was like in the mid 2000s when I saw them bring them down. So interesting.
Yeah. They have dorms, right, for the sororities, but like a physical, like we see on, I don't know.
Like what you see.
The sorority TikTok Bama Rush, right? And it's like 1,000 girls going crazy.
Flipping and the jumping. Yeah.
That is crazy. Well, I'm from Indiana, so we had sororities and fraternities. I never even thought of that. I've gone through ASU, but I hadn't paid attention. I never noticed that. Are there frat houses then? So there's no frat houses either. There's frat houses.
There was. They brought them down maybe 5, maybe a little more than 5 years
sexism.
Ago.
Gosh, okay. Right. Well, all right. You're going to take it away. Now this leads me into another question then. So you're averaging around $5,000 per bed?
In Arizona, yes.
Okay. Now I'm also just thinking, because we've talked about pad split. We've talked about how we can make this, I want to do affordable housing for domestic abuse victims and single parents and things. But I also just think there's going to be a time where I can make that happen, but there's probably less headache. I mean, you're going to have to deal with medications and people passing when they're elderly, but you're not having them throwing ragers in the house. You really don't have a lot of issues with the tenants because they're not being reckless.
Pretty docile.
Yeah, they're pretty they're sleeping 23 out of their koalas, sleeping most of the day.
And no AC issues either, because they love it when it's 79.
Yeah, they're always cold. So It's $5,000 a person. What's the red flag? If I was going to look into doing assisted living, what is the biggest pain in the butt? And I'm like, man, Isabella's talking super smooth. I thought she was an attorney for a second, but she didn't tell me about these red flags. What are the red flags with assisted living that you wish you would have known when you got started?
Yeah, I think that the most challenges, the three biggest challenges that you'll have: staffing. No matter if you know the best ways to get them and you try your hardest to get the best people, it's always going to be an issue. Like, until you kind of lock in your core people, it is difficult to kind of suss out what you need and who they are. So staffing is a challenge, and is for a lot of people until they can really get their systems down. Staffing is hard. Funding. Getting the funding to do this. Most homes across America are allowed to have somewhere between 6 and 16 residents in a home. Arizona, we're limited to 10, right? 5 without fire suppression, 10 with fire suppression. So 10, I mean, you're not going to find a lot of 10 bed homes on the market, right? Unless they were an assisted living home. Ours are all that way. But so you're going to have to do pretty big conversion or a ground up build. If you're in Texas, Indiana, New Jersey, Kansas, all these states where you're allowed to have 15 or 16 residents, same thing. That's, at 300 to 500 square feet per resident, you need a pretty big footprint, right? Even with 10 people, minimum 3,000 square foot, upwards of 5,000 is pretty comfortable. So a big home, a lot of renovations, carrying costs, all the stuff to furnish it, all the stuff to hire your staff before you're full. That's a lot of capital up front. So capital is something that holds people back, or people get a little scared off by, because it's not maybe as easy as just, let me just get the down payment on this house and then I'm going to rent it to a single family or whatever. Right. And then
what would you say on your average house? How much would you say you need to raise? Just say I have a 4-bedroom house and it's a 2-bath. So I'd have to add on 2 more bathrooms for it, or can I function with it as a 2-bath? 2 full baths.
I would add 5 bedrooms and 4 more bathrooms.
Okay.
But
all right.
Also, my big concern with that would be a 4-2. It's probably in a neighborhood that has a lot of other 4-2s. That neighborhood may not be able to supplement the kind of seniors you want in your home. So the location may not be correct. Right? We want to be in the area where the average age range is 50 to 70. They're making twice the median income, homeowners. That needs to be our majority population. So twice the median income, right? If it's 70K right now, that's 140 minimum. And if that's not what everybody's kind of making in that area, which I would presume with a 4-2, just an assumption, they're not.
No, you're right.
They can't afford to have their mom or dad come live in your home. So it's not located proper.
Okay. So, and you're doing, you have most of your houses in Scottsdale?
Scottsdale, Phoenix. Yeah. In that area.
Okay. So let's just go off of one of your Scottsdale houses. If we did a Scottsdale house, what would you need on average to raise? What's the average capital raise you need to get one of these going?
So the physical home, right? So like we'll go through all 3 of them. One of them, we bought it existing. So we bought the real estate, bought the business up and running day one. Back then, the real estate was maybe 400. The business was 150. This is 10 years ago. So I'd say honestly, 800 and probably 300 now would be that home, right? Okay. The other one was a single family home. We didn't have to break down even one outside wall. It was already 5,500 square feet. We just had to chop it up differently. So it was the cost of the real estate, which was like $495, again, probably something closer to 800, and then plus 100 in renovations. And again, these are Arizona prices for everybody listening, because all across the country, it's very different. Our third home, which is the nicest home and in the nicest part of Scottsdale, right? That home was about 900 back then. I think right now it's almost 2 million. And we put in another 200K. Again, did not break down any outside walls. We built out the garage and chopped it up a little differently. All these homes, that home's now an 11.9. The other 2 are 10.10s. So you want private bedrooms, private bathrooms, because it's very hard to fill shared rooms. Also, your expenses stay the same. Income is way less. And so it's just taking money from you. Also, it's the same amount of effort for you to run a 5-bed or a 16-bed. It's the same amount of effort for you. So go to the max, whatever the max is in your area, go to the max. and as many privates as you can. It's okay to have 1 or 2 shared options, but you don't want all.
Yeah. So again, I'm from Indiana. So just for everybody, if you guys are wondering about markets, I was actually speaking with my dad today, and Ingrid and I are looking at a mobile home here in Phoenix, a mobile home in a park, and we are looking to sell or buy it off of somebody for $50,000. I was getting my dad to guess how much a mobile home was, and he's like, I don't know, 50,000. I was like, you're right, but we're buying this house, or we're buying this mobile home, and it's not updated at all. There's actually tweakers living in it, and we could sell it with no work done to it, and it could sell not a finger lifted for 150. So out here in Phoenix, if you guys have land with a mobile home and it's up to date, they can sell for $300,000. Just to give you an idea of what the Phoenix market is like. Where I'm from in Indiana, a house similar to yours, Ingrid, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath house, $150,000, maybe $200,000, just so you guys can understand the difference in market prices. So
Yeah.
immediately in my head, I was even kind of mentioning this to Ingrid. I have family that works in like assisted living in Kansas. I have family in Kansas and Indiana. And I'm just thinking, I know a lot of people there. So do you have any properties in the Midwest right now?
I do not. We have a lot of students out there. It's very popular.
What would you say? Do you know how much, like just any Midwest state, how much do you think could be to get started in the Midwest? You can pick any state. Do you have an idea?
We have a student in Indiana right now, and he's doing a ground up build. So the land, full construction to get this home up and ready, $2 million all in.
Wow. And how many bedrooms will that be?
16 bedrooms, 16 bath.
And what do you think he'll make net a month? I'll give it to you after this, Ingrid.
Oh, he'll make upwards of probably 40K a month.
Net?
Yeah, that's what he'll take home as the owner.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm just going to do the math and see what the cash on cash return would be. So
what are we doing in Arizona?
So he would make $480,000 in a year on that. And then, geez, oh Pete. Yeah. Holy smokes.
Yeah. So if you're building custom, the home's going to be perfectly suitable for this. And so you're going to be able to do all those extra little fancy amenities than if you're converting a single family, right? You have some limitations. And so you can get a higher price point if it's custom build. So sometimes that is worth it to take that, chance and do it. And that's why I say like money is something that can hold a lot of people back, because if they're used to doing things that are on a lower scale, then it's like, oh my God, this is a huge venture. But if you're not using your own money,
infinite returns. Yeah.
Infinite returns. So it's just about changing the mindset of how can I make this work? It absolutely is possible. We have students in all 50 states who have these insane numbers, as low as, $10K a month, upwards of $40,000 a month. And it's like, this is with one home. A lot of people need hundreds of doors to get to those numbers. And it's entirely different. Like you said, you're not dealing with teenagers punching holes in the wall and holes being bred in the living room. Like,
again, my eyes have the heart emojis. I'm like, this is so dreamy. I'm so glad that Ingrid got you. I'm so glad that you agreed to come on. If anybody else has value from this, please let us know, because Ingrid is showing up and she's sick. She made this happen. So Isabelle, thank you for showing up for us, because this is every time I'm like, I wonder what we're talking about. Ingrid's been the last few guests that we've got. I'm like, this has been incredible. So I'm just along for the ride. But I want to hand it over to Ingrid because I've been asking a lot of questions. So Ingrid, take the mic.
I know that you focus on residential assisted living. I was brought an opportunity recently from a gal who is a social worker. She's amazing. I love her. She actually brings me leads because one of the ways that we as investors can actually help some seniors, not as comprehensively as like having an assisted living property, but if we can help them transition from the like you mentioned, I don't recall the statistic, but I think it's like 40% of seniors own their homes free and clear, and they can't actually afford to go into an assisted living, but they have to your point, they've now been told by their healthcare provider that they have to. And so anywho, one of the models that I'm a part of or building with one of my partners is to see how can we get in those conversations a bit more, because we have more tools in our toolbox with our creative finance perspective. But I'm like, imagine if we're super successful, where are we going to send these seniors to? So there was a gal, and forgive me because my story went all over the place, but the social worker that I know of who brings us leads, she actually wants to build like a big facility. I think of like a Brookdale, I believe, is like a common facility out here. I think they're the biggest in the United States, if I recall. I'm in food service, and I remember like when they landed that contract, everybody was so excited because they're the most premier assisted living facilities.
They're in Kansas. My cousin runs the ones in Kansas, so I know.
Oh, really? So it's funny. So I'm like, geez, like what would it take? I know you focus on residential, but is there a resource or like folks that you know to help maybe in that sort of big commercial build out?
I do not have resources because they are kind of like the antithesis of what we are, like our enemy.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
We're very, very anti Brookdale Sunrise Atrium large facilities because of the terrible care. 80% of our seniors come from those big boxes.
Oh,
I had such terrible
experience. You're schooling me. I don't know this. So, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean,
I dated a nurse for a little bit who had worked in one of those, and what you said, they're like, it was miserable working in a nursing home. They're like, I had like 60, like you're supposed to have like 24. And she's like, I had 60 patients. You were just running around the entire, because you got to think about it. We're in a capitalist country. How can you get the dollar to go further?
That makes sense.
So you probably sound so dreamy to nurses. Like, you need one more shift, one more nurse for me to come in there.
Okay, so I'm going to tell her just build 2 big ass houses in that lot.
Yeah. It's really hard. I mean, they're doing what we're doing at a mass scale, but because it's at a mass scale, the system is broken. And exactly like you said, the ratios are just off. And then it leads to lack of care. It leads to seniors dying earlier. It leads to UTIs not being caught. It leads to double diapering and people falling and not being, found till 8 hours later. I mean, it's the stories that you hear when you enter into this industry. Each one is more traumatizing than the next. And it just makes me have more fire and passion for like
what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, we're the Airbnbs to hotel. We're the Uber to taxi. We're that newer thing that people are like, I don't know about this yet, but like, I do think it will catch on. It's just, there's no like large branding thing. And so it's tough because other than the REL National Association and people being branded in that, there's no big sign. You don't know when you're driving by one. It's just a regular home, right?
Yeah.
So
how do people find you, Isabelle? How do people find out about you? You have a mole inside of Brookdale.
She says yes to podcasts.
well, find the home. You mean find the care home, like seniors?
Yeah. How do people? They're like, man, So I'll give you a horror story. When I remember we moved my grandma into one. Yeah. And Kansas, there's not really any hills, but her home was up on a slight hill. And I remember she was on my grandma just had cancer. She was still there mentally, but there's also the memory care where people kind of lose themselves. And I remember one time we were either pulling into the parking lot or leaving the parking lot. And one lady got out and she was in a wheelchair and just started rolling towards the street. Yeah, I got out of the car to grab her. So just to give you an idea, I don't know how she got out. And I mean, it was awful, but that's the kind of stuff that I've seen. Yeah. And I've been in a few nursing homes. I completely forgot what I was going to say, but I was going to tell you that story of the rolling down. So I forgot what my question was.
Isabelle, I actually had a great. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I had this. I saw somebody post something that I thought was really amazing. Maybe it's an in-betweener, like not a Brookdale, but maybe better or slightly above a residential, where they created an old mall. They converted an old mall so that the seniors who were living there had the experience of walking through like what would be kind of like a city life. Yes. And then they have like the movies, or they can go into like the dining, like where it was like a restaurant. And I had the thought in that there's that old Premium Outlets building on your way to like Tucson. And I was like, that'd be so cool to convert that into that sort of structure, especially for people who have dementia or have some level of memory issues, which maybe you can also speak on that, because I don't understand the different, like you have a memory care home and then you have not one, right? And anyway, so that was a thought too, because it could be some sort of conversion that would help these seniors kind of still carry that sort of nostalgic experience they've had in the past.
Yes, there is an amazing facility. It is a facility that is exactly that. It's in Sweden or Switzerland, somewhere in Europe. And they've built an entire village where like the seniors can go and buy their food, and the caregivers are the grocery store people, right? And they're scanning it and everything. And it lets them live like a normal life. And it's so cute. And you can pay like $500 to go visit for a day or something just to like check it out, because so many people want to recreate that. I love that idea. I think it's the cutest thing ever. And I'm not saying every Brookdale's bad, right?
No.
It's the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just when you have the ratio of care off, that's
Totally.
when it gets really tricky. So as long as the ratio is good, a big box could be good, right? And I love that type of idea. I think it is the cutest thing ever, and I really, really like it.
I wrote my question was, so how do people find you? Just word of mouth.
Marketing. So you definitely want to have everywhere. We call it daughter Judy, the adult child, that 50 to 70-year-old. We were talking about how you need to target her. You need to be right by her. So she is looking probably on the internet or Facebook. She's probably not on TikTok or Twitter, right? So got to have great presence on both of those, but also you need paper materials, business cards, brochures, flyers, all that good stuff. If you can have a sign, put up a sign. If you can't have a sign, put up a sign until they tell you to take it down, right? And then you take it down. But then you're going to network with geriatric doctors and nurses, elder law attorneys, hospice agents, respite care, long-term care insurance agents, all these different people, plus placement agents. It's an entire industry of people that when mom or dad falls and breaks their hip, they basically ask you what location, what amenities, what price point are you looking for? And more or less they're passing out business cards or touring you to those homes. If they choose your home, you as the homeowner, it doesn't cost the family anything. It's like a realtor kind of for assisted living. You, the care home owner, you pay them a full month's rent or half of a month's rent. And so again, I'd pay them that $5,000 all day if this person's going to stay for an average of 3.5 years and it's a great client for me. So placement agents, having your own web presence, connections and networking, those are all great ways to kind of fill your beds.
Okay. All right. I have another question before we let you go. Dustin asked it up here. He said, what with your processes, are you able to run these remotely, or do you still need to be close enough to meet with the admin?
Great question, Dustin. 31% of care home owners are remote owners, meaning they own a home in another state or far away from themselves. We even have students who own homes in Brazil, in Canada, in Mexico.
Really?
You don't have to be in the same country even, which is pretty cool. So you can definitely do it from afar. I highly encourage that the further you are, the more hands-off you'll be, right? Like my homes, I'm in Gilbert, so my homes are like 30, 45 minutes from me. It's just enough that like I'm not tempted to go every day. But if I'm in that part of town, okay, I'll swing by, right? Yeah. So it's if it was around the corner from me, which one of our team members, he was a student turned team member, his home was 10 minutes from him. He will go by every single morning for breakfast. And then when he's there, because the caregivers are cooking, so he's a young single guy, he's like, oh, I'm going to go for breakfast. But then once he's there, oh, Mr. Josh, we have issues with this, or can you do this? Can you do that? And now he gets sucked into a full day of work. So I'm like, no, you need me, you call me, and we're going to solve it as fast as we can and move on. Not that I'm not there for you, but I don't need to be there for you to be there for you, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I have a property in Houston, and people ask me that a lot. And I was like, it actually has forced me to have other resources because I can't physically be there. And so it actually makes me a better owner of that property because I have to rely on other people to do it instead of doing it myself.
Systems. Like there's no reason we need to have this podcast in person or webinar in person, right? We can do it on Zoom, right? Like, so why do I need to come and meet them in person? I can talk to them on Zoom. Half of these systems, med tracking systems or touring, scheduling, it's like all of this can be done online. Like everything can be done pretty much virtually. And so systems, there's so many programs that you can use to, there's even, okay, listen to this. There's even a program called Grove Menus. So Grove, Grove, Grove Menus. Okay. When you go there, you can say, I need to do, whatever, food for 10 people. Okay. It will do a whole month menu for you. Then you can say grocery list for 10 people for each of these days. It does a grocery list. You upload it into Instacart, get it delivered to your home. I don't need to go grocery shopping anymore. I don't need to do like there's so many systems that people just are kind of stuck in, our old school ways of like, well, I've got to go to the store and how much ingredients do I need for 10 people? And it's like, nope, systemize everything. You don't have to do anything.
I love that.
That's dreamy. Fantastic. So now I have another question for you. On average, do you do cash on cash return? Are you tracking like return or ROI? How do you track your money on these? Like when somebody's interested, like I'm thinking of, okay, raising capital. I have people I want to get involved in deals. What would you say the typical return on investment would be on a property in the first year?
I hate to say
it. Give me, you don't have to if you don't want to answer it.
Lawyer-esque, right? But it's like your ROI could be as low as 36% up to like 115%, depending on
how you structure the debt and how you leverage SBA loans and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it really, really ranges. Also, if you're using partners' money, now it's infinite, right? So there's so many ways that you could do it, but we show kind of examples in class that go from 36 to 115 to 136 to infinite. So you can kind of see like, this is how we can get there. This is how you can structure your deals. So
I like 36.
Lawyer answer, it depends.
No, that's okay. 36 is better than 10. So that's not a bad number. I mean, again, it comes back down to you're still doing the work. It still takes time. And if I can just go to your course for 3 days and learn all of your systems, then get mentoring from you, like, again, that just seems infinite. And there's what do you guys call it? The silver tsunami? That's still coming at us. So that was clever too. I like that. So that's a great way. There's a good question. Andriana asked, is there a house manager? So I'm guessing you just have the caretakers just kind of cycle through the house. You don't have one person that stays in the house and manages it?
No, the licensed administrator is kind of the house manager. We use that word manager, administrator interchangeably. So they're kind of running all the systems, all the setup of everything. So the administrator is the house manager.
Okay. We've just talked about like sober living where you've had somebody who's more sober and they kind of oversee the entire house before.
Yeah. No.
Okay. You've given me your red flags. Let me hear your favorite green flags and then we'll wrap it up and let you get back to making more affordable housing for seniors.
I think that the best part of being in this industry is a lot of people get into it for the money, and we always say it's about doing good and doing well. Like you need to have both of those in your heart. It can't be all heart, and it can't be all money, money, money. It needs to be that perfect mix.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes it's easy to forget the emotionality of it all. We started because my grandmother needed care. And when we were searching for her, I mean, there was nothing that I would want to leave my goldfish, let alone my grandma in, right? And we were like disgusted by everything. So we kind of vowed to find something better for her. But it's been, 12 years since then. And so sometimes when you're further away from it, you forget the emotionality involved. And I think that it's such a beautiful thing, like to receive a check for $5,000 wrapped in a love letter that says, thank you for taking care of my mom. Thank you for loving my mom. It's like, oh my gosh, like you actually feel good about this as an investment. And I just love that, being able to serve a population who needs us, a population who deserves us to step up and do something more. And you're not just serving the senior, you're serving those caregivers who are miserable in those big boxes. You're serving the families who feel guilty that they cannot give the care that you can, right? And they're willing to pay whatever to make sure that their loved one has the best of the best, right? And so you want to deliver on that. And so it's really heartfelt. And I think that sometimes people get that or underestimate that, but there's a lot of heart and emotion involved in this. And so I think always, like every month, honestly, when it comes time for people to pay, and then I'm getting like text messages, love letters, I'm like, oh, like, I love this. Like, I feel so good about this, not because of the money, because they're grateful. And it's like, it's not that punch in the wall with the check or half of the check, right? It's totally different. And so it just feels really good.
Yeah. Oh, I love helping people in that aspect. That's really cool. Well, Ingrid, do you have any other questions for Isabelle? I know we're already over on time and I want to be mindful.
I know. I thank you so much for staying overtime. I was just going to ask you this a fun question. Or a fun question and a business question. What's your favorite business book? And then who's your favorite artist right now?
My favorite a business book. It's kind of a life book, but I take every life book as a business book. It's called the 5 a.m. Club. Have you ever read it?
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
I like that one. I think it's so good just to remind us, like, self-care, put yourself first, get in the right headspace and do what needs to be done. And then the rest of the day will flow. Like everything will come to you when you do things, in the right way. So I like 5 a.m. Club. And my artist right now, this is so lame. So don't everybody make fun of me. My favorite, he's not even hot right now, but it's totally my gym music. My hype music is Pitbull. I love Pitbull.
Pitbull's a solid guy.
He's a classic.
Right, that's a good one. All right. Well, then I'm going to ask you my fun question. I always ask this to people. So, Isabelle, if you could have 2 minutes and you could go talk to yourself, you have 2 minutes to talk to yourself at any point in time of your life, when would you go back and what would you say to yourself?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, you guys, Mr. Worldwide. Okay, you know what? I don't know how much you guys know about our business, but we are a family business.
Yes.
My dad started this 10 years ago, and I started working with him pretty soon after that, maybe like 9.5-ish years ago. And he passed in 2021. He was kind of like, the Geico lizard, and what happens when the Geico lizard goes away? So it was like, oh my gosh, like our whole family, our whole business, almost everything shut down. But when I realized these 3 cash flowing homes just passed seamlessly from one generation to the next, how can I not share this with as many investors and entrepreneurs as I possibly can? Like, this is like cracking the code to that generational wealth and passing things to your kids, not like all these messed up contracts. And so I was so nervous for 9.5 years. I refused to go on stage or do anything recorded, film anything. I didn't want to be seen anywhere.
That's very surprising, because I really thought for a moment earlier, I was like, is she a lawyer? I was thinking that you were very well, like you,
really?
I feel like you did well.
I thought she was like if I had to say, like, what is Isabelle? I'm like, she's a broadcaster. She has such a beautiful voice, and like,
I imagine you like on a Tony Robbins stage talking to a bunch of people.
If you haven't been able to tell, I'm totally your fangirl. So,
well, you guys would have loved my dad. He was absolutely the best at all of that. And I think I just learned through osmosis, just watching him over the years. And so I think I would go back to like 2.5 years ago when I was so doubting myself and thinking like, you can't do this and you're not, good enough and you don't know what you're doing. Even though I had run all these homes behind the scenes, run all these businesses behind the scenes, and I knew all the stuff, but I was so scared to step out. And so I think I would just encourage myself, like, you have no idea what's coming up. Like, just trust the path, and like, God is with you and dad is watching you, and everything's going to be good. So I would just motivate and encourage myself back then, because I really didn't know. And it was like, let me just jump off this cliff and hope I can fly.
Yeah.
Looks like you've done it well. And when did, that's, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Isabelle.
We're going to have like a part 2. This is this was amazing. Thank you.
Happy to chat whenever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, Ingryd, I'm going to let you bring us home.
Yeah. Well, if you guys have gotten value from this, please make sure you're liking, you're sharing. Go follow Isabelle Guarino on Instagram. Is that your handle is your name, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. And of course, sign up for her academy. The next one is in October. Definitely a great way to, again, maximize your profits and your purpose. So I really, really, really love that. Thank you so much for being such an amazing guest. Really enjoyed you. I was so excited to have you on, that even though I'm not feeling great, I had to be on here. So I really appreciate for you sharing this time with us. And I'm sure the questions are going to continue. So maybe we could do this some other time too, or even as we get closer to your academy, just so that folks know that that's a resource, because that's amazing. Anybody out there, and we've talked about reading the E-Myth, like systems and processes is what's going to make you a true business owner. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, guys, make sure you like this, share this with somebody. Please let more people know about this. Isabelle, you can see her name on here, Isabelle. And then, we love a pup. I've been petting.
We love dogs here.
Oh, little cutie. He's like, it's dinner time.
Follow her on Instagram. We'll post it on our Instagram story so you guys can find her. Thank you so much again, guys. Please let her know. Thank you for coming on. If you got any value, I see everybody in the side chat here. We will see you next Wednesday at 4:00. Have a great day, guys. And remember, fail forward, learn something new, and get out of your comfort zone. Bye, everybody.